Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenni Kiiholma. I am the agriculture counsellor at the Embassy of Finland here in Pretoria. I've been here in South Africa for 2 years now, a bit more. My background is from veterinary sciences, but I work here in agriculture sector in a broader sense, also with trade-related issues. So that was short and sweet from my side.
Thank you, Wynand, for having me here. My name is Roberto Cecutti. I'm the head of the Trade and Economic section here in Pretoria at the EU delegation, the European Union delegation here in South Africa. So good afternoon, Durban, good afternoon, Limpopo, and good afternoon, South Africa. So colleagues and dear members of the panel and audience, the title of this discussion is actually quite clear, Positioning for Growth, Time for Greater World-Africa Trade Collaboration in order to promote resilience. So what I'm going to talk about is the kind of collaboration that the European Union has with the African Union first at continental level, and then zooming a bit more into the collaboration we have with South Africa, and see also how this has moved over time. Next slide, Wynand, thanks. Maybe just to set the scene, I would just like to highlight what are the key policy frameworks or political elements that are constituting a bit the framework of our collaboration with the African Union. On the EU side, actually in September 2008, we adopted what we call the New Africa-Europe Alliance for Sustainable Investments and Jobs. And this is quite an important moment because it signs a shift of paradigm from a typical development cooperation collaboration that we had between Europe and the African continent to a more partnership approach, where instead of a donor-recipient relation, we would have actually a relation amongst equal partners, where trade, investment, research, development, and all other policies are becoming the important pillars. Not only donors and development cooperation, but all the typical elements of a foreign relation. And in March 2020, actually, we strengthened this kind of collaboration with a white paper, which was called Towards a Comprehensive Strategy with Africa. So that means we are bringing all policies that the EU is deploying in the different areas, the agricultural areas included, in order to strengthen the relation we have with the African continent. And last but not least, in December 2020, we have adopted in Europe a piece of legislation, well, not a white paper called the EU Green Deal. And that is actually our contribution to the fight against climate change, because it's a complete, again, paradigm shift where all economic sectors are now evaluated and considered against policies needed and measures needed to fight climate change. And on the EU side, I think that the key framework is the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Programme. Together now with, of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which have become the masterpiece of the integration at continental level from a trade and from other perspectives. So you see here that all these policy frameworks are based on trying to strengthen our trade and investment relation, creating job and growth, more inclusiveness, because it's not only government to government, but also private sector, civil society, and academia, and moving towards more sustainable food systems, building back better after the COVID and the pandemic, green recovery, and the circularity and energy efficiency. I will come back to these different elements. Next slide, Wynand, please. So, which kind of relations we have between the European Union and the African Union? So, structured relations started back in 2012, and there are taking place at 3 levels mainly: at technical, senior official level, and ministerial level. At technical level, we have what is called an agri-contact group, which is between our Department of Agriculture in the European Union and the Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture in the African Union, together with all the other bodies and institutions that are working related to agriculture. At senior official level, actually, in 2018, we have launched what is a task force Rural Africa with a clear commitment to move forward the collaboration in different areas. And then, of course, at ministerial level, since 2016, we have different ministerial conferences where we establish our political priorities for the coming years. So basically, I would just like to mention the ministerial conference of 2019. It was in Rome with the African Union and the agricultural ministers of the African Union member states and our Commissioner for Agriculture. And this was the third ministerial, and actually it led to a political declaration and an act called Rural Transformation Action Agenda. What is embedded in these two statements and declarations is that we would like to get more involved in our collaboration of all actors concerned in agriculture, meaning not only the institutions, but also the civil society, the private sector, and at local level, and targeting specifically youth, women, and also academia and research institutions. So basically, at the Ministerial Conference of 2019, we actually established a partnership at three levels, of public to private sector, of business to business, and government to government. And this is the way it continues to work now. And very recently, on the 22nd of June of this year, in 2021, we had actually the fourth ministerial conference, and it took place here also in Europe. And this ministerial conference actually was focused, of course, in the light of the pandemic. The key topic was more sustainable food systems, how you establish and create more sustainable food systems, and in response to the pandemic, building back together and a green recovery. So there were basically 4 sessions. Allow me, Wynand, just to go quickly through each of them, because they are quite important in how we work. The session on investments is concluded that what is important now in our collaboration is to attract strategic investments. Strategic investments meaning those that can help in a transition to sustainable and integrated food systems. And of course, with the purpose of giving safe, affordable, nutritious, and environmentally sustainable food to everybody. And of course, this kind of investments can have success only if there is a government actions that are supporting policy dialogues between the private and the public sector, capacity building, and green and digital transformation. And what is important is that also these investments are targeted specifically at youth, women, and to achieve sustainable development goals and sustainability in the many resources. And of course, with the human capital necessary that needs to be created. TVET, technical vocational training, private-public partnerships, and access to finance. On research and innovation, actually, it was very focused on how we build back together better and with a greener and with a more digital way. And then digital solution was mainly trying to apply all the fourth industrial revolution technologies via satellite devices, network services, applications into agriculture. And of course, a regional trade integration. That's very important in order to create a bigger market in Africa. But it was also made clear that tariffs alone, as embedded in the African Continental Free Trade Area, are not the answer. Tariffs must be accompanied by a number of other measures, but I will show in a minute what these are. If you can go to the next slide. Actually, I just would like now to elaborate more on which kind of cooperation, more practical, that we have between the European Union and the African Union. And this is actually set against a bit of analysis of what is the situation in the African continent when it comes to agriculture. The key feature, and of course every country is different, is that agriculture remains one of the most important economic sector in the African economy. And allow me just to share a bit what is a World Bank report of 2020 saying that growth in the agri sector can generate 4 times more efficiency in raising income amongst the poorest segment of the population. So, of course, 65% of employment in Africa comes from agriculture, and only in the formal sector. You cannot imagine then in the informal economy what is the role, even more. 75% of trade in Africa is represented by agri-food products. But the problem, of course, this doesn't come without challenges. And the challenges is that actually agriculture in Africa, of course, we all know it, is still overly dependent on primary agri products, both in the domestic production and in export. So the lack of diversification makes economies of the African continent too similar sometimes, and then the need, of course, to work more through value chains. It's also an agriculture characterized by low profit and low productivity. Still, I'm not talking now about South Africa specifically, but Africa in general, and also excessively dependent on world prices for commodities. And there is still insufficient value addition in Africa and not competitive enough in agri-processing. And of course, and now it's the circular economy aspect and the energy efficiency aspect that become important. So all in all, actually, then how are we going to work together to face and cope to all these challenges and bring into benefit? What we want to work is around common standards on quality infrastructure, on packing and labeling, on transport, on cold chain logistics, animal health, environmental protection, and also labor rights. That is basically a bit the main lines of our collaboration. Next slide, please, Wynand. So basically, this develops into quite an active trading environment between the African Union and South Africa, and the African Union. Europe remains the first agri-food importer for Africa, the number one, and also one amongst the first investors in the area in Africa. But also Africa represents increasingly a number of potentials for European companies and European businesses, because it has been estimated by 2030, actually the value of the Africa food market will triplicate, will be 3 times bigger than what it is now. And this has incredible opportunities for farmers everywhere and for creating value chains in this sense. So between 2014 and 2020, we have been working in 36 sub-Saharan countries around food security, nutrition, sustainable agriculture, and also support to farmers via direct financing. And now, specifically, we're working very much to support the African continental free trade areas in 4 key areas that are important for agriculture. Geographical indications first, because by registering, protecting, and enforcing the rights of a product which is related to a specific geographical area, you promote economic opportunities in that geographical area, and you also generate benefits, like is the case for the rooibos tea very recently here in South Africa. And here we know that there is an IPR plan for Africa, and we are aiming at having more convergent rules and practices at continental level when it comes to GIs. Then agri-food platforms, these are actually fora where between the African Union, European Union, where companies, private investors and dialogue can take place. And in 2020, platforms were created in Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and also South Africa. We also work together then in economic analysis around the agricultural sector through the Joint Research Center that is based in Europe and the Pan-African Network for Economic Analysis of Policies in Africa. And SPS, we all know that SPS are important not only for consumer protection, of course, health considerations, but also for exports. And it is important then to work together to ensure harmonization of food safety and SPS legislation in the African continent, and also having an African Union SPS framework strategy, basically. So Wynand, if you can go to the next slide, I just want to zoom very briefly now on what is happening and what we do in South Africa. So next slide.
Roberto, yeah, if we can just run through it quickly and just give Jenny enough time to still do hers as well.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Actually, I propose then I stop here, because if there are questions on what we do with South Africa, I'm happy to answer. And but I think for the African Union and a continental level, I gave a bit of the overview I wanted to give. Thank you, Wynand.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm coming from Pretoria, from the Embassy of Finland. So yeah, first of all, thanks for this opportunity to bring the voice of one of the smaller Nordic European member states after Roberto's great overview of the European points. First of all, I'm not quite sure how much our audience knows about Finland and Finland as an agricultural country. So I wanted to just use a few minutes to do that. So Finland can be this. It's very cold. In the winter, the temperatures can go down to minus 40 degrees Celsius. So actually that picture there on the left-hand side, it is a traffic sign showing the road names. And of course, our beautiful Northern Lights. But anyways, as the whole country is located on top of the 360th latitude, so we are the northernmost country in the Europe. This means the winters are cold, as you can see. But that also helps our farmers to fight animal diseases and plant diseases in the natural way. In addition, the animal housings, of course, have to be very well isolated and insulated. So this also helps us to improve the biosecurity. But then, if I can have the next slide, please. Finland can also be this. This is a photo I received from a farmer last summer. That just ended now. We are going into fall in Finland, but it was actually plus 40. And it was so hot that the cows were also taking some refreshing dips in one of our clear water lakes. In fact, it got to plus 40 degrees. So the temperature differences in Finland is quite phenomenal. But anyways, this northern location means that our summers are really warm and our summers are light. The sun doesn't set for the whole, basically for 3 months. So the growing period is very intensive, which helps our farmers, again, to maximize the taste and vitamins in our produce. So we produce dairy, as this lovely lady here in the picture, and oats, rye. We have a wonderful dark rye bread that unfortunately we can't get here in South Africa, but then also barley, pork meat, poultry meat, and eggs. And interestingly, Finland is the largest producer of caraway seeds in the world. It's especially the intensive and light growth period that makes the spice especially flavorful in Finland. Well, besides that, we are naturally blessed with these extreme seasons. The innovation and technology Finnish farming has made big leaps. With help of precision farming and sensor technology, Finnish farmers have been able to reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizers quite a lot. So much so that we are actually kind of the best in a class in European countries as well. So can I have the next slide, please? So it's maybe hard to believe sometimes that Finland used to be extremely poor 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago, actually. The picture on the left, that's my grandfather, bless his soul. He just returned from the war and got straight back to work, producing some food the best way he could to the war-ravaged nation. But then again, on the right-hand side, we can see where we are now. We are managing our animals with our smartphones. So with technology, leaps like this are possible. Perhaps this is a good moment to highlight that South Africa is extremely important trade partner in agricultural products to European Union, as Roberto well knows, and also Finland especially. Finnish consumers have taken South African excellent food products to our hearts and to our dinner tables, especially wine and fruits. However, it seems like Finland needs to do a little bit more work to to kind of raise awareness of our products here in South Africa. Let me quickly illustrate this with some statistic, if Wynand, you can show the next slide, please. So here you can see last year, Finland imported 11.6 million euro worth of goods, agricultural goods, and South Africa brought 46.8 million euros of goods to Finland, mostly fruit and wine. So this is a good starting point for a partnership that we would like to grow and develop in the years to come. In fact, Finland aims to double the trade and investment between herself and Africa by 2030, and efforts are made to significantly increase investment between Finnish companies in Africa and also African companies in Finland. But let's go back to the farmers, if I can have you change the slides, please. The food industry nowadays is not all about tastes and money. It's food production is also part of kind of a bigger picture. So what is almost more important is sustainability, safety, traceability, and transparency throughout the whole food chain. And when it comes to animal production, my grandparents were dairy farmers. That's why I have all these pictures of dairy cows. They're close to my heart. Anyways, when it comes to animal production, the topic of most importance to the farmers and the consumers is animal welfare. I can tell a few examples in just a moment. So Finnish innovative food business operators that operate in the entire spectrum of farm to fork are finding ways on incorporating exactly sustainability to their operations. So not only reducing carbon emissions on their pathway to carbon neutrality, Finland is aiming to be carbon neutral by 2035. But also they are aiming to optimize the water footprint, eradicating biodiversity loss and eutrophication. And on top of this, also optimizing animal welfare with ways such as artificial intelligence. So talking about AI, digitalization in general is in the core of the future of food production. What you can't measure, you cannot manage. So a quick example about animal welfare. There was just a test in a big commercial poultry farm in Finland, where they put additional enrichment items for the chicken, like simple things, ropes, straw bales, and things provided for chicken. And they had these smart cameras installed to record animal activity 24/7. So it's probably a no-brainer, but the activity and natural behavior of the animals increased significantly. This, on the other hand, would reduce stress on animals and also reduce management issues at the farms. So large food business operators in Finland have set these kind of standard digital protocols.
Activities that are specific to South Africa that you are working on, that's where you got to in your slide. Let's hear about a bit about that.
Yeah, no need to put the slide. Thank you, Wynand.
Okay.
No, South Africa is quite a key partner for Europe in the African continent. And from a trade and investment perspective, agriculture included, in fact, we have a very clear legal framework in place, which is the economic partnership agreement that people might know. And this is actually liberalizing trade in agricultural products as well, in intermediary products, and is also creating a number of facilitation in place. So I was mentioning the economic partnership agreement as a key legal tool that is providing certainty and predictability in our bilateral trade, agricultural products included. And actually, this has shown a big advantage even throughout the pandemic and after the pandemic, because the agricultural exports from South Africa to the European Union have proved to be extremely resilient in spite of the pandemic and in spite of all the disruption in our supply chains. Overall exports from South Africa to Europe increased by 7.5% in 2020 compared to 2019, much more than towards other countries, while imports, unfortunately, they decreased by 11.5%. And if we look now at the trade balance of South Africa and Europe, we can see that South Africa has a positive trade balance in agricultural products, and a positive trade balance of 6.6 billion in 2020, which was above 4.7 billion more than in 2019. So this in spite of the pandemic. So the growth of agri-food products towards Europe was almost the double than compared to the one with the rest of the world. And the three largest exports remain citrus, grapes, and wine. They represented 40% of all agriculture exports from South Africa to Europe and 3% out of the overall exports from South Africa to Europe. So there are, in any event, untapped potential here in South Africa that we are working together with the Department of Agriculture in order to fulfill, because in the Economic Partnership Agreement, you have what they call the tariff rate quotas, possibility to export without paying duty up to a certain quantity. These quantities are underutilized for canned fruit, for butter, for citrus jam, for frozen strawberries, for milk powder, for white crystalline powder, and for bioethanol. In some cases, is an issue on SPS, because they are not managing to meet some SPS consideration, but in other cases, it's more a question of regulatory framework and lack of interest here in South Africa. So much more can be done, and what we are currently doing is really working in South Africa around some value chains. We have been working now with the natural fibers. Okay, it's not wool, cotton, and because there are great things being done in terms of sustainability here in South Africa. We work on bioethanol, which is a byproduct of sugar, but can also be synthetic. We work now on hemp and cannabis, which presents a huge potential. And together with DTI and the Northwest University, we are working actually on analyzing what are the export potential in agri-food that can be further exploited under the Economic Partnership Agreement. So much untapped potential, and we want to really get more engaged in all this. Thank you.
So this is all good and well, but where is the business? That I will tell you. I just found some recent studies from Forbes and Harvard Business Schools, which are quite distinguished institutions. They have revealed, for instance, that 87% of the consumers included in the study would rather buy a product with social and environmental benefit if they were given an opportunity to do so. That was 87% of these consumers. And then 88% of these consumers would stay loyal to that company who supports social and environmental issues. And in addition, there are studies that indicate that products derived from animals that are not stressed are of superior quality and have superior taste. Anyways, that I wanted to say. So why I wanted to highlight these issues is that the Finnish and the Nordic market, most likely the European market as well, Roberto would know a bit more about the general trends in the EU, but the consumer trend is strongly towards favoring products that embrace these kind of, I don't know, non-taste, non-price values, for the lack of a better word. For instance, taking an example of important South African export item is wine. So last year alone, the sales of wines labeled organic in Finland increased 29%. Also, the so-called vegan wines grew 119%. And the wines labeled ethical, meaning that they had like specific labor-related certificates, those grew 37%. So this is kind of an indication that if you want to enter the market, it's important to take these issues into consideration. It's all good and well that you want to increase your productivity and accessibility to the markets for farmers with digital technologies and artificial intelligence. I mean, it's all good and well, but for many African countries, the ideas is fantastic, but the farmers quickly face practical issues. One of the main ones, of course, being the high cost of data. And so I kind of wanted to highlight that one. To illustrate this, in sub-Saharan Africa, a cost of 1 gig mobile data is $6.44. In Finland, is $0.97. This is 6.44 compared to 0.97. So, and the gross national income in Finland is on average 30 times higher than in sub-Saharan Africa. An even more startling example, I found out that downloading an HD quality movie in Chad that provides apparently the most expensive data, mobile data in the world. So it's not South Africa. So that could cost more than $90 US, where it costs about $4 in Finland to download a movie. So I think this should be headlines in the news, in my view.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to give a quick example of a Finnish company that has done some investment here but I'm not sure if I have any more time to do that. So I just wanted to share a very concrete example. Roberto was also talking about the European strategy where we want to, increase investment and trade and all of that. So there is actually a company, a Finnish company in South Africa called Huhtamäki, and this is to do with sustainable food packaging, as we're talking about resilience and sustainability today. So Huhtamäki recently announced that they will invest in a new manufacturing unit in KZN to serve the egg packaging customers in the area. And this comes after they already made 58 million euro investment in 2019. And also, Huhtamäki South Africa is a proud level 4 BBBEE, so they are kind of serious about transformation in South Africa. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that example, as the event is also physically there in Durban. Anyways, this is also where Finland recently launched the government Africa strategy is encouraging towards. So partnerships and investment in line with the EU strategy that Roberto mentioned. So it kind of emphasizes the importance to strengthen mutually beneficial political economic relations in areas such as environmental and water security and food security, and also emphasize One Health thinking, which kind of combines human, animal, plant, and environmental health. So you probably know that the 3 out of 4 new human diseases are zoonotic, so they are derived from the animal world. So this is a very important aspect to take into consideration, also thinking of food chain. So Finland can introduce cutting-edge competitive expertise and technology that can help create decent jobs and increase the productivity in African companies. Anyway, so Finnish companies can play part in helping African economies to adopt cleaner and more sustainable solutions and tackle the challenges arising from climate change and biodiversity loss. So cooperation between Finnish and African actors, also in research and innovation, that also Roberto was talking about, it can lead to new technological solutions. And this is already ongoing. There are some research projects also regarding One Health and antibiotic resistant that we are sharing research or doing research together with the South African universities. And we especially kind of focus on cooperation to promote digitalization, as well as circular economy and bioeconomy and agricultural solution, waste management and renewable energy. And there are actually, at this moment, some interesting small Finnish companies testing new ways to create energy in South Africa. So interesting things coming in the future. So keep your eyes open.
What next? I think that's always important to talk about what next. There's a lot of talk about water and energy. We can probably sit here for another 2 hours just to talk about water and energy, smart farming, and collaboration opportunities between governments, the private industry, and how we going to, my specialty is the skills development and education. If you can give us a quick what next? Let's start with you, Roberto.
Well, what next? We have it in front of us and around us. First of all, what's next with COVID? And the need actually to have a resilient value chains and supplies of agricultural products. And then it's a climate change. Agriculture is actually the key victim and the crucial victim of climate change around the world, in Africa in particular. And let's also never forget that the agri-food actually represent in the world between 21% and 37% of total greenhouse gases emissions. That is a big challenge that puts into question a bit the paradigm of food security, which remains absolutely important, specifically in Africa. But then food sustainability. Are they compatible or are they not compatible? We perfectly think in Europe, and we have done it, that the two things must go hand in hand. And actually, you can have food security and better access to food and healthier food, environmentally friendly food, etc., if you make it more sustainable. So for me, actually, it's really now a question of talking about circularity in the way we do agriculture and energy efficiency, so that we can have a better food, more affordable food, and environmentally friendly food. This is my pitch and what's next. Thank you, Wynand.
Thank you. Jenni, over to you.
Thank you so much, Wynand and Roberto. I mean, Roberto, you kind of summarized it so well, so I'm not quite sure anymore what to add there. But now that, Wynand, that you mentioned skills development and education, and from a Finland point of view, maybe that's what I left out earlier and I would like to raise here. I mean, Finland is one of the top countries in the world when it comes to education and skills development.
Yeah.
So this is really something what we could, as a small, a small country in the north, offer and share together with South Africa and with Africa and in a global context. Because I mean, when people are educated, then they will make educated decisions also when it comes to food and when it comes to business decisions, when it comes to farming decisions. The more you know, the better world we will build together.
Education is the key to so many other things. And we were in one of the sessions yesterday, we were talking about access to markets and access to capital. And one of the panelists was from the investment bank in Mozambique. And it's exactly that. People are uneducated in how to present their business and how to actually conduct a business from a very young age. So they go and they start their own business, and it starts off very small, but they don't keep any records. There's nothing. So by the time they get to that point where they have to approach the bank to assist financially so they can expand their business, they get put in the back of the queue because they don't have any records that they've kept. Although they have a very strong business that's been built up from a zero base, they don't have the record keeping because they were never trained how to keep those. And that is skills development and education that could make such an impact. I think the same sort of phrase that we used yesterday, in our session, we came up with the final phrase that would summarize it all, and that is collaborate for impact. Not just collaborate for the sake of collaborating, but collaborate for impact. Find the partners out there, find the people out there that are already doing it, that's got a solution that you could plug into your solution, and let's get the funding that there is a lot of, and match it on the ground to where it is going to have the biggest impact and where the biggest need is. Not just throw it around and hope that it makes a difference. So thank you both for your time. Thank you for everything. I think that was a very good session. And like I said, we can probably keep this discussion going for hours. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for everyone that joined us. And good luck, and please get in touch if you need any details, contact details, or the presentations. Thanks both. Go well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.